Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by David Wolman, Devin Hasson, and Nolan Beilstein. Jim, we got a full house for this one. I got a four-man crew for the first time in a hot minute. So, hey, we must have a big game we got to talk about today.
Did you have to buy another headset for today's podcast?
No, we've had one that's been collecting cobwebs for a few months. So, I got to dust that off. And, sure enough, got the whole band together to talk about our game of the week. This was a very, very lopsided entry into the poll this week. This week, our game of the week is actually going right back to the site of last week's game of the week, back out to Coppell at Buddy Echols Field for the site of a very, very contentious matchup in District 66A as the Coppell Cowboys welcome undefeated state-ranked Marcus. Yes, this one is, I guess, a chance for some early bragging rights in District 66A. Both these teams are undefeated in district play, at least. Marcus undefeated on the season. Coppell has the one loss to Highland Park. So, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, they've looked like two of the elite teams in this district up to this point. So a chance for one to make a bit of a statement. I know Hebron obviously is still undefeated as well in district. Can't leave them out. But this is I guess a very fascinating matchup. David, you just got to see Coppell last week in our game of the week as they earned the right to be up for this week's game of the week by virtue of beating Plano West in a game that certainly had a lot of anticipation leading up to it. Yeah. Coppell was able to pick up a 31-20 victory on the strength of a very strong, whereas we obviously spent a lot of last week's podcast, going over the some of the specifics with Coppell as far as some of the key pieces in this matchup and whatnot. I'm just kind of circle back to last Friday to start this off and just kind of talk a bit about you were at this game. Mm-hmm. So when you think back to Coppell and what they were able to do to get a little bit of distance against Plano West, because this was a game that was very much in doubt for a while. They had to rally from a bit of a deficit there in the fourth quarter. What did Coppell do well, I guess, in the end here, and just kind of talk a bit about what they did to make that comeback and ultimately win this one by double digits?
Well, they didn't allow Plano West to score any points in the second half.
That helps.
Yeah, of course. They were actually down 20-14 at halftime in this game, and a couple big plays on defense. Kenan Peters, he got moved to outside linebacker a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, if you counted today. He had like one sack that prevented Plano West from kicking a field goal. Mm-hmm. And I think this came right after Tyler Harrell. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Yep. Had I think a second interception of the game, and so like that prevented them from scoring. And then also in the fourth quarter, he had another interception like right after he had an interception right after. Peters did after Coppell went ahead 24-20, and that allowed Coppell to open the game up right there. So those are two huge plays right there. Then Coppell was able to string some drives together there in the fourth quarter right there. Jason Agu got it started off with 4 straight runs, allowed him to get the go-ahead touchdown. I think it was to KJ Liggins right there on an 8-yard touchdown pass. He cut the ball at the 4-yard line. Made a move. He's very physical down there in the red zone. Dove for the touchdown, and then Coppell added another touchdown late to make it 31-20. So whenever Coppell had to make some plays, they did. There are times that they're kind of held down. They either had a turnover or like they had a play that didn't go their way, and like in some of their games, it's just like Coppell might have some trouble stringing together drives, like in the Plano game, like the previous week. They were up by 20 points in that game, like over 20 points in that game, and then. They had some trouble in the fourth quarter, stringing together some drives. Whereas in the third quarter, Ryan Walker threw for 3 touchdown passes. So it's a Coppell team that whenever they have to make plays, they get it done. And now Coppell's 4-1 on the season. They only had 4 wins the entire last year. So this is a team that's, finding out how to win close games.
I talked with the Plano West head coach, Tyler Sukup, yesterday for that matter, just to kind of get his perspective, kind of looking back on that game against Coppell. And one thing that he mentioned, especially there late, was that he felt like Coppell, quote-unquote, out-toughed his kids. And, that's, not much of a surprise when you think of just Coppell and just the pedigree of that program, especially up front. Yeah. That's a program that's churned out a lot of Division I caliber offensive linemen over the years. So to hear that Coppell was able to, get a bit of an advantage in the trenches, and like you mentioned, Jason Ingwu really got going there late to help kind of ice that game. I wasn't surprised to hear that Coppell was able to kind of put away West with a pretty similar manuscript to how they've done in the past. So yeah, I can see. I mean, Coppell, they've been blowing and going. They're very much in a bounce back mode after missing the playoffs last season for the first time since 2011?
12.
1 year off. so close.
So you're close.
But obviously, the level of competition ramps up a little bit this week because you have, what was the projected favorite to win this district coming into the season, and Marcus has certainly lived up to that hype. Undefeated. Devin, do you recall when the last time they were undefeated this far into the season?
No, I don't. No? I did go back and look it up though. It was 1995.
Okay,
was the last time they had an undefeated regular season.
So obviously it's a team that you look at the raw numbers, and I got to see this team in person for the first time last week against Plano in a matchup that they blew the doors off Plano. This was 56-17, a very worthy follow-up to their 55-14 demolition of Flower Mound and the Mound showdown the week prior. Again, a lot of talk coming into this year about this offense, especially the passing game with the continuity that they had at quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier, an LSU commit who's one of the top quarterbacks in the state, and just some of the experience that they had out wide with J. Michael Sturdivant, committed to Cal, Dallas Dudley, really, really promising junior. And, so far it's been as advertised, 463.6 yards per game, 47 points per game. They've really, really come on strong since their Week 3 matchup against Keller Central. They've scored at least 49 points their last 3 games, and it really reflects in the play of Nussmeier, who the offense is naturally kind of built around. For the longest time, Marcus was one of the most run-centric offenses in the area. There were years when it was like 75 to 80% run for them, and it's kind of odd now because the roles have reversed quite a bit this year, and they're one of the I can't imagine there are too many offenses that are almost 60-40 in favor of the pass. As much as offenses have opened up in recent years with the spread and all that, you still see it's usually like 55. 45 in favor of the run and whatnot, but this is a program that understands the talent that they have, with their passing game and behind center. And they've actually last week's game against Plano, that was the first time all season that they've actually run the ball more than they've passed it. So just to kind of give an idea as to what to expect there, because there were some questions coming into the season as far as what Marcus's run game was going to look like. Tyson Edwards was a workhorse for them last season. As much praise as the passing game got last year, Tyson Edwards was a huge reason why that team won district, and without that workhorse, they've turned to a bit of a committee, but it feels like in recent weeks that they've slowly started to find a bit of a rhythm on the ground. Gabe Espinoza, Walker Wells, Cade Navarro, who was a big standout in that game against Plano last week. Usually you're only going to see them maybe 7 to 11 carries apiece, but they all kind of take turns, and they've all shown that they can, at least work not only as rushers, but as receivers as well. And when you factor in what they've already got out wide, it's such a multifaceted passing game. He scored on a screen pass last week against Plano, but I remember, when he first, moved into Flower Mound, seeing him over the summer in 7-on-7 and just how he was torching opposing secondaries in 7-on-7 just on deep balls. He averaged, right around, 20 yards a catch last season. He can stretch the field as well as Dallas Dudley. And then they've got, Connor Vaughn, who's just a massive target at tight end. In addition to Tyler Schott, there are just so many weapons to keep track of on the field, and it hamstrings a defense so much when you couple that with the job that Nussmeier does in the pocket, evading pressure and buying time. And that was one thing that was really, really apparent against Plano, and what Plano's head coach Todd Ford called a lot of off-schedule throws. Just Nussmeier's ability to make plays on the run when he's flushed out of the pocket, and he's playing with so much confidence right now. There's not a throw out there that doesn't feel like he can't make. He's right now he's at 1,560 passing yards on the season. He's got 20 passing touchdowns. I believe he's had at least 4 passing touchdowns his last 3 games. He's in such a good way right now. Only 3 interceptions on almost 180 passes attempted. So, it's a passing offense that is very much for real. It's going to be a bit of a different wrinkle than what Coppell's seen as far as running into a pass-first offense, and one that can attack you in so many different ways, because when you factor in how good Nussmeier is at buying time, that puts so much stress on the secondary, because you can only cover receivers for so long. And, Marcus's receivers kind of thrive in those situations as far as kind of improvising off their original routes. And, with Nussmeier not being bashful about letting it fly and attempting a difficult throw, I don't know, it really makes it tough on opposing secondaries, and Plano just had its absolute hands full in that one. So let's see, I guess that's, some stuff on the offense. Nolan, I know that you had some numbers that you would track down regarding this matchup. Just what did you come up with as far as kind of building some intrigue for this one on Friday?
Yeah, just to start out, I've never seen either of these teams play.
Yeah, you've only been here a week, so you're still kind of getting a feel for all this. And yeah, so what'd you come up with?
Yeah, take what I say with a grain of salt, but I'm just doing unbiased numbers and just seeing that Marcus has won their games by an average of 27 points. So if Coppell's going to be able to hang with them, they're going to need to play error-free football.
Yeah.
And I was looking at quarterback Ryan Walker of Coppell. His stats this season. He's got 17 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the year, which wouldn't seem too bad, except all 6 of them have come in the last 2 games, both against district opponents. 4 of them were against Plano, a game they only won by 2 points. So if you're going to get in one of those shootouts, I feel like, just be wise to take care of the ball as much as you can and don't give them any extra possessions.
Devin, you were just kind of talking a bit about just from an intrigue standpoint. Obviously, I know these aren't 2 teams that you're terribly familiar with and whatnot, but obviously, given the ramifications of it being a potential, I guess, a chance to establish an early front runner for the district title, what intrigues you about this matchup?
I think it's the first time Marcus is really going to get tested. I don't think they've really beaten anybody. Not to take away from the teams that they played. Whereas Coppell, I was leaning Coppell for a while on this because they went toe to toe with Saxe, and they're not going to be intimidated by Garrett Nussmeier. They've seen very good quarterbacks. Alex Orgy at Saxe is very good. Braden Shager over at Highland Park, they went toe to toe with Highland Park. Took them down to the wire, and so I'm sitting there looking at their level of competition. And then I saw the Plano game, and I get that they turn the ball over a lot, and that's what scared me off. But I think this is going to be the first time Marcus is really tested. I really like Coppell's weapons on the outside. Obviously they're a balanced on unit, but just with a guy like KJ Liggins, this is a game where he might get targeted 15 times and just give him a chance to take over. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a good game. Again, I haven't seen Marcus play. Marcus, full disclosure, is one of my nemesis teams on the picket line. It doesn't matter who they play. I always seem to get them wrong. Yeah. So that kind of made me weary in general, but I think it's going to be a great game. It'll be,
I think on paper, the most dynamic offense that Marcus's defense has played up to this point. Marcus's defense, for all the praise that we heap on the offense, their defense is Jesuit's the only team that's cleared 20 points against them. Yep. They've been really, really stout on that side of the ball, and it was kind of the defense that set the tone last week against Plano, because Plano actually was having some success moving the ball on them, especially through the air. And then they get down in the red zone, and then I believe it was Mark Vassar who has a sack to back Plano up into 4th and long. They end up going for it, and then Emmerich DePona, a linebacker who transferred into the program from reigning TAPS Division I state champion Parish Episcopal, he has an interception, and that just right there just jolts life into the Marcus sidelines, and then off the offense went. Plano got down into Marcus territory, not too much further down the road, and then it was Tyler Gainey, another linebacker who had an interception. That's one thing that they've been really adept at, is they're really stout when it comes to forcing turnovers. They've had at least 2 takeaways in every game this season. They've got a lot of talent up front, back from last season's district title team, led in the middle there with Hunter Sanders, Ty Strauss. They had the defensive newcomer of the year, Bryson Barber, another defensive lineman for them. They did a really good job in one of the more, because I was looking over the resume too, and I wasn't really sure what to make of it, because technically 4 of those teams that they played made the playoffs last year, but some are going through different phases and whatnot, with Jesuit graduating E.J. Smith, Flower Mound graduating all its skill talent from last year. So that's what makes it a little bit tough to to read into just how tough that Marcus schedule has been up to this point. But I was really impressed with the job that they did against McKinney and slowing down R.J. Carver, who's one of the better power backs that you'll see in the Collin County area, and they held him to under 3 yards a carry. That's pretty solid work there against a guy who I think the week prior against Plano he ran for like over 200 yards and whatnot. So some effective stuff up front, like I mentioned, DePona, Tyler Gainey, Mark Vassar. They've got a lot of athletes in the middle of their defense. Gainey, who's actually used to play running back for them in previous years, he's being used more exclusively on defense this season. They've got some experience in the back end and the secondary with Christian Espinoza, Ty Johnson. They check a lot of boxes. It's been a really, really well-rounded team for again, for as much praise as gets heaped on the offense. But nevertheless, David, you're actually going to be at this game.
I am.
Once again, you get the game of the week. Lucky you.
I know.
So what is just kind of talk about, what are you excited for most as far as this matchup goes? What are you most anxious to see?
I'm just anxious to see these offenses go at each other. I mean, this is not going to be a 15-7 game.
Yeah, last year it was. That's why I'm kind of curious to see how much has changed in a year's time.
Yeah, I looked at the stats from last year's game. Both teams finished under 300 yards of offense.
Yeah, it was.
So I think that's going to change a little bit this year. I think both of the teams
first half numbers.
Yeah, first half numbers. So I'm just eager to see how Marcus defends KJ Liggins right there, because obviously he's Coppell's number one target on their offense. So I'm eager to see how they defend him. I'm eager to see, if Anthony Black can continue what he did. He had another touchdown last week. I think he had 3 against Highland Park a few weeks ago.
Wow.
And so this game last week, he had it was like a 26-yard touchdown pass, and he was sliding towards like the corner of the end zone. He caught it inbounds. So that could be like dark horse in this matchup right here. Obviously Nagu, if he can get going, he can burn some clock right there. Take some snaps away from Nussmeier out there. And then on Marcus's side as well too, you're eager to see how well Nussmeier just handles a defense that's thrives on turnovers.
Yeah.
They've already forced, I think, 11 turnovers in 5 games.
That's pretty
impressive.
Pretty high figure, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm eager to see, what kind of pressure he's going to face, how his offensive line is going to handle that right there, because they do, thrive on, blitzing, put a lot of pressure on their quarterback. So I'm eager to see how that goes. So it's going to be a heck of a game on Friday.
Yeah, for all of the, the prolific numbers that Marcus put up even last season with all the talent that they had on offense, this was the one matchup where I think above all others, they really had a tough time getting anything going in.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was 15-7, which coming into the game, I think we would have been saying a lot of the same stuff. I don't think we would have foreseen Marcus's offense, putting up only 15 and needing overtime to do that, for that matter, against Coppell. But, Coppell came into that game with basically with the intent on trying to blitz and pressure Nussmeier at all costs. And they were able to mix up their blitzes and attack from so many different angles that it really just kind of kept that passing game off balance for most of the way. They didn't score in the first half in that game.
It's till the third quarter that they didn't score.
Yeah, and it wasn't really until they actually made a change in the backfield. And I just mentioned Tyler Gainey, one of their standout linebackers. He actually had one of his best games as a running back last season, is really kind of lifting up that offense. He had 92 yards in that game, most of them in the second half, and he actually was the guy who willed them to the finish line there in overtime. Whereas you think, you expect to start of overtime, okay, we're going to put the ball in the hands of our district MVP and just let it fly. They actually did nothing but run the ball. They ran the ball 4 straight times in that overtime period, and then Gainey scores. They get a 2-point conversion, and then they get a stop on Coppell the following series. But it was in this game has been close in the past. I know, Devin, you mentioned that they're not going to be intimidated by Nussmeier, and they don't have any reason to be. They held him to just 15 points last year, and then they beat them the year prior when Nussmeier was just a sophomore. They beat him 24-23. So it's been a game that Coppell has been very much able to get up for in the past. So I guess if you're Coppell now, even though you come into this game as an underdog, at least head coach Mike DeWitt, has these last couple of years to draw upon as far as some sort of blueprint, as far as something that, we have evidence that this is how you knock, Nussmeier off his game. And, that's not to say that it's going to, carry out just like it did last year, on Friday. Nussmeier is obviously a bit more experienced, and he's playing some of the best football of his career. But nevertheless, though, Coppell has shown a blueprint for slowing him down, and now the onus shifts to Nussmeier. Okay, well, how much have you learned from a year ago? So I'm anxious to see if Coppell's defense can match their effort from last season. And like you said, Devin, I just want to see if they have to work out of any sort of adversity, because that's the one thing with Coppell that you look at, just their pathway to this game versus Marcus's. Marcus hasn't trailed this season. They've played with an advantage every step of the way, and there were times against McKinney where they had to work out of some uncomfortable spots. They only totaled, I believe, 15 rushing yards in that game. They had to throw the ball almost 50 times with Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier actually was their leading rusher in that game too, which, in hindsight, I'm sure obviously, Kevin Atkinson, their head coach, probably would not like to see that too many more times going forward with the talent that they have in the backfield. But it was, but again, that was a game that they ultimately ended up winning 27-10. Versus Coppell, who had to rally from behind, late against Plano West. They mounted a big comeback, near comeback against Highland Park in week 3, and put a minor scare into them for a little bit. But that's a team that certainly had to work out of some situations that Marcus, up to this point, at least this season, hasn't. Now, I know that was kind of Marcus's MO last year because they won so many close games. So someone like Nussmeier is not going to be fazed by having to rally from a little bit of a deficit. But every year's different, every team's different. So this team specifically, though, hasn't done it yet. So I'm just curious to see if Coppell can make them a little uncomfortable on Friday. As far as predictions go for this one, where are we leaning, folks? Nolan, you're brand new to the picket line this week.
No pressure.
What was your, I don't know what your thought process was for two teams that you're still, learning about and whatnot, but where did you ultimately land on this one?
Just hearing you guys talk and the numbers that I came across while doing a little research, I feel like it's not an exciting pick, but the safe pick would be Marcus. So that's where I'm going to go with this week. Start off 1-0.
Oh.
Look to keep that percentage at 100 throughout the season.
Devin, how about you, man? Where did you land on this?
Well, I kind of tipped my hand earlier, and I did go with Marcus. I did think about it though, in terms of just when I looked at Coppell having kind of seeing them having competent opponents with some of my teams in my market. I think Coppell can beat them. I just right now I'm giving the edge to Marcus.
Yeah, I went with Marcus as well. Just it's a vote for Nussmeier not getting bamboozled for the second straight time by Coppell. I mean, again, just the throws that kid was making last week. I mean, he really has grown a ton since his junior year. And like I said, there's not a throw out there that he doesn't feel like he can't make right now. And who knows? Maybe playing against, I think Coppell is, at least on paper, perhaps the best defense that they've seen up to this point. So perhaps against a more seasoned and a more precise secondary that maybe you get in some trouble with some of those throws. But there's just a lot of weapons, a lot of ground to cover on that with that offense. And I think ultimately that just proves to be a little too much for Coppell, despite Coppell getting this game at Buddy Echols Field. So yes, I like Marcus to remain undefeated as well. David, you're going to be at this game, so I have to tip your hand. But where are you leaning on this?
No pressure for me whatsoever. It's going to be a very close game right there. I mean, both of these teams, based on the last 2 years, with last year going to overtime, then last year, would you say it was a 2-point game? 2 years ago, it was a 2-point game?
It was a 1-point game.
1-point game.
24-23.
It just feels like it's just one of those rivalry games, just the way things have strung out the last 2 seasons. It's going to be one of those again right there. But I think the difference in this game right there is just going to be like 1 or 2 turnovers. Like Coppell's, they've had some trouble just protecting the ball recently. Obviously, they threw 2 interceptions had a lost fumble last week. 2 of those turnovers led to 10 points for Plano West. So that leaves me a little bit concerned about Coppell right there. So just based on that reason, I think that Marcus is just going to pull this one out, but maybe by a touchdown or a field goal.
Okay, so there we go. We are unanimous. We think Marcus gets it done, defeats Coppell to stay unbeaten and in pursuit of a back-to-back district championship, and that is our game of the week. Once again, Friday, 7 o'clock, out at Buddy Echols Field in Coppell, a matchup for some early 6-6A bragging rights between Coppell and Marcus. All right, guys, let's look at the rest of our Game of the Week docket. We had 4 other games that were up for consideration, including a couple in Frisco ISD, one of which is Thursday, 7 o'clock out at the Star. Do you think this is a playoff eliminator in 7-5A Division II, Devin?
What's that? The Liberty?
Yeah, Liberty.
Lebanon Trail.
Oh, sorry.
Off in La La Land. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think it's a little bit too early. Okay. I mean, it's because both teams are coming in, with solid records. I think there's still a lot to be said. Liberty, I mean, we talk about Keldrick Luster every week.
How can you not, man? This kid's incredible.
But he's still a sophomore. And I think you saw, even though he put up ridiculous numbers again last week, it wasn't by his standards. He had the 4 interceptions. And that's just a testament to how good Frisco is and how good that Frisco defense is. I mean, Lebanon Trail is still such a young program. They're kind of going through this for the first time. They have some weapons of their own with, Drew Martin and Greg Hatley and Drew Donnelly on the outside. I just think if you look at the big plays for Liberty, not just with Keldrick Luster, what he could do on the ground, but, Evan Stewart and Connor Holstein, they each average 20 yards a catch. Jonathan Bone on the ground, who's very capable. And I think they have playmakers on defense, even though it might not reflect in the stats always. Guys like Will Glatch, who we've talked about before, making that shift from offense, Daniel Ajay, just people like that. I think Liberty has the edge in this. But again, Keldrick, a sophomore quarterback, and coming off that game, how's he going to bounce back? From their first district loss. But it should be a fun one.
Because I guess in a sense it was only a matter of time before somebody made him look like a sophomore. Just because he's just exceeded every expectation they could have had for him with just some of the numbers that he's put up the first half of the season. I did a stats column, basically just going down and basically just digging up basically through the first half of the season who are the overall stat leaders in Frisco ISD football up to this point across all 10 high schools, passing, rushing, receiving, tackles, sacks, interceptions, all sorts of good stuff. Naturally, Keldrick Luster was graded out quite highly in this. Obviously, he's the leading passer in the city with 1,603 yards. He's second in rushing with 790. I mean, and I think you've already dropped this stat in the past, but if you just his per game offense, just how much his passing and rushing accounts for alone, right now, it is at 398 yards, which for comparison's sake, that alone is more than any team offense in Frisco ISD outside of Heritage. So that's, just to put in perspective as to what this kid's doing up to this this point. It's just, my goodness, is it impressive. And obviously, yes, it helps to have, one of the top receivers in the state, Evan Stewart, on the outside, and, a San Diego State committing Connor Holstein to throw to. I mean, they've got a lot of talent there around him for sure. But nevertheless, I do think that just a little bit too much firepower for Lebanon Trail, who can score, who's shown that they can get into shootouts for sure. But it's very tough to pick against Liberty in any sort of shootout circumstance, given that, what number 12 has shown so far. So, yes, I like Liberty to win this one as well. And this is one that we were unanimous in. We all picked the Liberty Redhawks to get the win over the Lebanon Trail Trailblazers in a meeting between potential playoff teams out of 7-5A Division II. Nolan, let's talk a little bit about another key matchup in 6-6A. This one, 7 o'clock Friday at Neil Wilson Stadium in Flower Mound. The Flower Mound Jaguars, they host Lewisville. You got to see Lewisville last week in your first game with us.
A team I have seen.
Lewisville's offense bounced back in a big way, hanging a 50 burger on Plano East. Got a very, very convincing bounce back victory after that surprising loss to Plano West. With Flower Mound, almost had a chance to take care of Hebron in overtime. They actually had a chance to win that in overtime, and we've seen this a little bit surface at the college level and in the NFL. But attempting a field goal on second down, it did not go well for the Flower Mound Jaguars, and then Hebron was able to put this game away and win 25-20. So yes, Flower Mound still in search of its first district win. Lewisville looking to further climb the ladder and get back to the level that some folks had them at heading into district play. So talk a little bit about this matchup, Nolan. What intrigues you about it, and ultimately, where are you leaning?
Well, I've seen two teams since joining here, and one of them is Lewisville. And I saw Taylor Green throw for over 350 yards. I saw Damian Martinez rush for over 200 yards. And just skimming through some 6A leaders across the state, I saw that Damian Martinez has already eclipsed 1,000 yards. Yes. And it's leading the state in 6A, and the second place still in the 700s. So
what a year he's having.
When you're not throwing for almost 400 yards, you can also wear a team out and milk some clock with the guy who's going to rush for 200 yards potentially every game. So they scored a season-high 56 points last week, and they're facing Flower Mound, who I have scoring 17 points a game and a minus 46-point differential in district play. So I haven't seen Flower Mound play, but I really don't think that they can hang with them, hang with Lewisville, so that's why I would side with Lewisville for this one.
Just I do wonder about just kind of the ceiling for the Flower Mound offense. I will be, they've only scored obviously more than 20 points one time this season. But nevertheless, one thing I'm kind of on high alert for in this game is after watching Lewisville and just the struggles they had against Plano West, I do think there's still some elements of that Flower Mound defense that can give them some trouble. And I'm just curious to see if Flower Mound, if they're able to have a little bit of success up front, if Stone Eby's able to put a little bit of pressure on Taylor Green, and if they, because you take aside that Marcus game where they, just got absolutely just mauled, 55-14, and their defense has been really, really solid all season long, including, they had a matchup in week 3 against, Mansfield Timberview, who's ranked, number 6, number 7 in the state in 5A Division II. They only held them, they held them to 18 points. So they can play defense at Flower Mound, to be fair, and I'm curious to see if Lewisville's offense, if any of those demons from the Plano West game resurface at any point in this. Because otherwise, that maybe put a little bit on high alert if Lewisville's offense struggles again against another, at least above average defense. So just something to kind of keep an eye on, heading into this one. But ultimately, kind of like you, though, I think that I just don't know if Flower Mound can score enough to hang with them.
You're not doing the upset?
I'm not. I'm going with the Farmers in this one as well. Let's see. David, where are you leaning on this one?
I'm leaning Lewisville as well, too. Just too much firepower. It's... I think Flower Mound's defense can maybe hold them down for a while, but when you're not scoring points the way that Lewisville is capable of scoring points, it's like you're going to run out of so much steam after a while. Yeah. So it'll be close for maybe a little while. Then I feel like Lewisville is going to be able to kind of wear them down a little bit, and that's when they take off. Yeah,
Martinez is a heck of a weapon to go to if you're trying to wear an opposing defense down.
Yeah.
And did I look at the Flower Mound stats wrong on their rushing numbers?
What are you seeing?
Are they averaging less than 2 yards per carry on the season? Because I know Max Preps is not always 100% correct, but just by going back and seeing a couple of their game recaps, obviously they can move the ball through the air at times, but I just didn't realize that their ground game had struggled that much.
Yeah, there's not a ton of experience there in the backfield, and that's certainly worth noting. And I believe up front as well, they're a little young too. I mean, this is a team that only returned I believe 2 starters from last season, so. It's that doesn't surprise me. And you look at some of the just the numbers they've been able to post, and it's been an offense that's really still. I mean, there's talent there. Nick Evers is a potential Division I prospect. Parker Clark is a really really dynamic receiver, but just haven't really hit its stride yet. So you're going to have to score points against Lewisville unless you got some Plano West magic working, and I'm just not sure that'll be the case Friday. So we are all in unison. We liked Lewisville to get it done against Flower Mound. Let's go to a game where I know there is at least some dissension. And that is another matchup in Frisco ISD. This one, a pivotal matchup in 5-5A Division I. I mean, with what Lone Star and Denton Ryan have shown as far as being the top 2 in that district, and now it looks like that those last 2 playoff spots are going to be some combination of Independence, Reedy, and Wakeland. And what do you know? We got Independence taking on Wakeland Friday, 7 o'clock out at Toyota Stadium. Let's see. Devin, what do you what are your thoughts heading into this one, and where did you ultimately end up leaning?
We talked a lot about Independence at the very start of the season and just what a dynamic offense they had, the potential that they brought, and then they go out and they start 0-3, and but you look at who they lost to. They played Frisco as tough as anybody in losing, and that's what that Frisco has turned into. I mean, they've just been running over.
Certainly lost its age quite well.
Yeah,
Look at how easily they've handled everyone else.
And then they went toe-to-toe with Wichita Falls Rider, who's a 5-1 team. And then they lost to Reedy, who's a good football team. And we talked about Braylon Braxton not putting up Braylon Braxton numbers that we were expecting. They had the time off with the COVID case. Maybe give him a chance to regroup, kind of refocus. Braylon Braxton didn't put up video game numbers, but he didn't need to last week. They won 62-7. But what jumped out to me was 12 of 14 passing. Very efficient, 168 yards. They have the balance, in the backfield, and I think they may be turning a corner. Wakeland has certainly put together an impressive body of work. I mean, when you're 5-1, they certainly have the weapons on offense as well. Peyton Lewis is coming off. I mentioned Braxton's efficiency last week. Peyton Lewis 10-15 for 340 last week.
Oh, goodness.
10 completions for 340 yards and 5 touchdowns.
34 yards of completion.
Yeah, I think I'd take that any week. And then you combine that with Jared White in the backfield. He goes over 200. They had a pair of 100-yard receivers. I guess the only alarming thing is Wakeland gave up 37 points in the first 4 games. Then they ran into Ryan. You kind of throw that one out. But then they gave up 31 to Heritage last week. And this is a dynamic Heritage offense.
Heritage is one of the best offenses in the area
right
now.
But, they have a dual-threat quarterback of their own who went for almost 500 yards. And now they have Braylon Braxton, who I just said I think is kind of turning a corner and kind of rediscovering himself. I just think that may be a bad combination with Independence rolling in maybe at the right time for them.
Yeah, as much of a it kind of threw us off the scent with them with that loss to Reedy. You got to kind of keep in perspective that was their first game at 21 days, and the COVID shutdown hangover is real. We've seen, I believe just about every team that we've had that's had one of these multi-week layoffs, they've looked completely different for a little while in that first game back. Allen, great as Allen is this season, top 5 ranked in the state. They only had 21 points through 3 quarters last week against McKinney. Boy, they're up 21-9 in that game, and then they scored 21 in the fourth quarter, got it together, and wound up running away with it. But, Salina lost to Aubrey in its first game after a multi-week hiatus. It's just tough when you're away that long, and so that's why I kind of don't want to read as much into that as I probably did initially, just because it's, the COVID shutdown hangover is very much real we're seeing. So I'm kind of in the same line as you, though. I think that this is, and maybe this is just because we've kind of been married to, thinking that they're due for one of these games and one of these statement performances, but I like Independence as well. But, and I know you do too, David.
I do.
So Nolan, where are you? Where are you leaning?
Oh, obviously, this is a Wakeland victory just waiting to happen. I base that on absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it is strange to look at picking a 1-3 team over a 5-1 team.
I know, that's the thing. It wouldn't be shocking though. I said, I don't want to say it straight up. It would not be a shocking outcome if Wakeland. Jared White is leading all 5A running backs in rushing yardage right now. Yeah. He's been amazing this season. And if you're looking for the kind of offense that could potentially limit the snaps of a Braylon Braxton and keep that offense shackled to the sidelines, what a better option than the Metroplex's 5A leading rusher. So, I wouldn't be shocked if Wakeland pulled this off in the slightest. But nevertheless, though, this is 3-1, a 3-1 verdict in favor of Independence to get it done over Wakeland in a pivotal matchup in 5A Division I. Let's close this out then with a look at a matchup between Mesquite ISD powers. In a matchup with two teams that just trying to get a district win right now, trying to get a little bit of forward momentum for that in that playoff picture over in District 10-6A. This one is the renewal of the rivalry between Mesquite and Horn, 7:30 Friday at Mesquite Memorial Stadium, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Wasn't sure if that was right. If it was that or Hanby. Like I said, both teams need a district win, though. Mesquite needs a win right now. It's been a really, really tough start to the year for the Skeeters. So just some thoughts on this matchup and where you're leaning.
Mesquite's a team that you just keep waiting to have that kind of breakout performance. They've had some close losses early on. Last week it was just they lose 57-0 to Rockwall. It was a game that got out of hand early, and I think that's just when you say, hey, let's stay healthy. Let's work on a couple things. Let's get some younger guys in, and let's just put it behind us and move on to the next week. Well, that week is here, and this is essentially a playoffs eliminator. These teams are both 0-2 in district. Yeah. And when you look at that district, Rockwall looks like the clear favorite. But Skyline has kind of been a surprise. They're 2-0 as well. Beat Tyler Legacy last week. Rockwall Heath has that offense. I think they're going to be right there as well. Mm-hmm. That doesn't leave a lot of room for that fourth and final playoff spot, especially coming from an 0-2 hole. With Mesquite, it's just been a struggle offensively to kind of find their identity. They're averaging 15.6 points. They've used two different quarterbacks. Hunter Nucci and Chance Edwards started the year rotating. They've kind of rolled with Chance. He did miss. Chance Edwards did miss a game due to injury. They've been rolled with him full time of late. Just trying to generate plays. They threw the ball 30 times last week and passed for 98 yards. And not to say there's not talent out there. Jamarian Woods and Cameron Boger and Gervin McCarthy, on the outside, and KB Frazier in the backfield. They do have the talent, the skill position. They just haven't been able to put it together just yet. Going against a team that I think has a lot of talent on offense. The consistency is lacking. Horn gave up 69 points, but they scored 51 last week against Rockwall Heath. But the week before that, they played North Mesquite. They were only able to put up 21. And that's just kind of what you find. Darius White, who they moved to quarterback. He was one of their leading tacklers early in the season, but they just couldn't find anybody to fill that quarterback spot. Darius White, obviously a great athlete, so they shifted him to the opposite side of the ball. And kind of last week is what you get with him. 18 of 35 for 328. Obviously spectacular numbers, 3 for 4 touchdowns. I think it's 3 for 4 interceptions. So, you kind of take the good with the bad. And when I saw them a couple weeks ago against North Mesquite, he had receivers open. He just, he's a guy still adjusting to a new position. Naturally. But he also, brings that element on the ground. He went for over 130 and 2 touchdowns on the ground last week. Camden Taylor, Edric Ruff are both guys that will get the ball out of the backfield and line up on the outside. Chris Don has been a big play guy. He went 5 for 152 and 2 touchdowns last week. So that they do their skill positions. If Mesquite, once you get into a shootout with them, it's not going to end well just because Mesquite is still lacking that overall consistency. Horn is getting it in spurts, but it's still, if it comes down to a shootout, then I give Horn the edge. Plus, last year this game was highly anticipated. Mesquite goes on to make the playoffs, but Horn won this game 35-14. Yeah. And they did so on the ground, and they were able to control the clock. And I mentioned, guys like Camden Taylor and Edric Ruff being able to run the ball. And they just kept it out of Mesquite's hands and lead on that defense. And guys like Terrence Johnson and Charles Demings and Jordan Prince. So they could look back to last year's game and go, we got 3 guys averaging 6.5, 7 yards a carry. Let's see if we could just pound them and not have to risk the interceptions through the air that could happen with a young quarterback.
Yeah, so Devin likes Horn to get it done against Mesquite, and you're not alone, Devin. We all like Horn to get it done against Mesquite. So, yes, a unanimous pick for the Horn Jaguars to win a pivotal matchup between Mesquite ISD rivals. Before we get out of here, let's take a look at, I guess, the rest of the picket line, let you know what some of the other games that we made predictions for this week. Let's see. John Paul II and Fort Worth All Saints, a pivotal matchup between TAPS teams. John Paul, despite the narrow loss to Parish Episcopal last week, it's been a bit of a down year for All Saints. I kind of thought All Saints might have a little bit more. But nevertheless, though, that is unanimous. We are all leaning JP2 to get it done against All Saints in that one. And let's see. Then Thursday night, a matchup in 5-6A. Prosper, after a heartbreaking last-second loss to McKinney. Not to McKinney, but to Denton Geyer. They travel to McKinney to play the McKinney Lions. We like Prosper to bounce back in this one. We are all taking the Prosper Eagles to get the win over the McKinney Lions. We have a rivalry matchup in Plano ISD in District 6-6A. Plano West, the subject of our game of the week last week, they look to bounce back against rival Plano East, who is looking for its first win of the season. There was a little dissension in this one. We are 3-1 in favor of Plano West. Devin, you are the lone dissent on Plano East Island. You and Matt Diggs.
Yeah, I'm about to say me and Diggs.
Whereas myself, David, and Nolan are taking Plano West. We had a little bit of dissension in this other one, too, over in Garland ISD. This one was a 2-2 split between Rowlett and Garland High. I'm picking Rowlett, as are you, Nolan, David, and Devin.
You've got the lead, right? So if I pick what you
pick, yeah. So it's bulletproof. I'm never wrong about any of this stuff. Yeah, please. And then David and Devin picking Garland. And then our last one was West Mesquite against Tyler over in 7-5A Division I. We like the Tyler Lions to get it done in that one. So, and just to give you all an update on our records up to this point, Nolan, you're starting with a clean slate. We're actually working in someone on the picket line mid-season for the first time ever. Nolan, you're 0-0, so
can only get better.
Exactly. Let's see, and then David and Devin, you two are tied at 39-18 on the season, and then I'm up 43-14. So we'll see what that all means as Week 7 gets underway on Thursday. Let's see. Before we go, let's talk a bit about our coverage plans for the week. Which games we're going to be at?
Oh, me. I didn't know which way you were going. That was a really quick turn of the head right there.
There you go.
On Thursday night, I'm going to be at Toyota Stadium to cover Lovejoy at Frisco Memorial. Mm-hmm. Interested to kind of see what Chris Ross has done with this 5-0 team so far.
Scoring lots of points.
They're scoring lots with Rolf Rucker.
Lots of points.
Yeah. And then Friday, I'm going to be over the game of the week.
There you go. Let's see. For me, my Thursday gets rolling out in McKinney. I'll be at McKinney ISD Stadium for the aforementioned 5-6A matchup between McKinney and Prosper. And then I'll be shifting over to Plano for Friday as Plano East and Plano West square off at Kimbrough Stadium. Got a tough act to follow last year after Plano West was able to snap its 34-game losing streak after erasing in 17 or 18 points in the 18 points, an 18-point deficit in the fourth quarter to come back and win 36-35. Just wild game, tough act to follow, but we'll see. A chance for East to get its first win, and Plano West looking to, further climb the playoff ladder in 6-6A. Devin, what's your schedule look like?
Since they decided to shuffle the deck in 9-6A, I ended up not having a game out there on Thursday night. Friday, I'll be at the aforementioned Mesquite and Horn game, but it's going to be an all-day thing. They're actually doing their Hall of Honor ceremony that day. I'm part of the selection committee, so it's an exciting thing there. So they're doing the actual induction ceremony that afternoon. And then having the on-field ceremony that night at the game. But it's really cool for those who have actually been out to Mesquite to see how they've done the Hall of Honor. It's only in its third year, I believe, but they do a really good job with it and recognizing some of the great athletes and great coaches and whatnot in Mesquite ISD.
And Nolan, what have you got going on later this week?
I am off to John Clark Stadium, right, in Plano, where they will take on Hebron.
There you go. Plano Wildcats and the Hebron Hawks, another matchup in District 6-6A. You can follow us all along on Twitter. We'll be tweeting out updates all throughout the course of our respective games. And then, we'll be back on Monday to talk a bit about what happened in our next episode of the podcast. So, that'll wrap it up for today. Until next time, folks, you take care, and we will talk to y'all later.